Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that two of them think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. They are Jeff and Bryan. Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm with my friend Bryan, and this is our Towel Day
bonus episode.
Hi there, this is Jeff. This is the closest thing that I am ever going to do to an actual commercial. It goes along with this episode, so I just want to announce that last Saturday was Free Comic Book Day. It happens the first Saturday in May every year. What is Free Comic Book Day? Well, let me tell you. Free Comic Book Day is the biggest event in the comic book industry. It's a single day when participating comic book specialty shops across North America and around the world give away comic books absolutely free to anyone who comes into their shops. It is founded on the belief that for every person out there, there's a comic book they'll love. The annual event offers a huge selection of free titles designed to appeal to a broad range of age levels and their tastes. If you missed Free Comic Book Day this year, it'll happen again next year on the first Saturday in May.
Hey Jeff, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Bryan, how are you?
Well, actually, I'm feeling a little sketchy.
Sketchy? Oh no, why are you feeling sketchy?
Well, I'm just feeling a little drawn out.
Drawn out and sketchy. Well,
I know how you love a good pun, so.
Yeah. You're just killing me over here.
More comic book jokes.
More comic book jokes, yes. Welcome to our first of 2 bonus episodes this month, where we're going to be doing issues 2 and 3 of Volume 1 of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series of comic books, which the first one here is based on the first book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Well, that's quite a mouthful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, my goodness.
So before we get too far into this, I want to make something clear that we don't believe that DC dragged people in off the street and said, hey, we need somebody to draw this book.
But did we imply that?
I don't know. Maybe it could be interpreted that way. So I wanted to give a little kind of credentials to the people. So John Carnell, who adopted the story, if you look on the website comicvine.com, which is a wiki that contains all kinds of comic book information about titles and creators and characters, you'll see that John Carnell is credited in 33 different issues of various comic books.
Awesome.
Steve Leialoha, who illustrated and inked the first book, he's credited in 658 issues of various comics.
Somebody kept him busy.
Yeah, Steve Baskerville, who inked the book, he has his name misspelled because it should be spelled with a PH rather than a V.
Oh, really?
He's credited in 206 issues of various comics.
Wow.
Art Nichols, who also inked the book, is credited in 270 issues. Laverne Kinzierski, who did the coloring of the book, he's credited in 779 issues of various comics.
Wow.
And Todd Klein, award-winning letterer who lettered the book, is credited in 3,520 issues of various comics.
Oh my gosh. I know that, that's a lot of information. Do you know, this was in 1993, so did you have any idea of when their careers started or anything along those lines, or were they just contemporary at the time, or do they still work?
I am sure they are still working, especially the letterer, or he continued to work after this project, obviously.
Okay.
There's no way that you've got 3,520 issues of lettering comics that ended in 1993.
Right. Yeah, that's
Anyway,
amazing.
That information is obtainable. I did not dig that deep.
Oh, okay.
This could have been the first project every one of them ever did. I don't know that.
It doesn't seem like it, though, because I think we made reference to a couple of different styles that seem to be represented within the image. And I know the one thing that you and I enjoyed the most about walking around and talking to these various artists who are in the industry, they all seem to be able to produce their own and various other styles of display imaging, of the comic book style. It's quite fascinating to see them all and understand what they do.
Yes, it is. We won't spend too much time on the bio page of this because it's pretty much all the same people that were in the first one. There is an addition. There's a gentleman named Dennis Rodier, Rodier. There's probably 10 different pronunciations. I'm just going to go with Rodier. It could be Rodier. It could be Rodier. Anyway, he inked the book, and he actually has 203 credits in various comics.
Nice.
So another established person.
Great.
So right now we'll start by looking at the cover, and starts out with the same image that was under the what's to come in the next book. And it's done in the very same style as the cover of the first book.
Same title page, up at the top. The graphics for that are the same as the original. Correct.
And we kind of pointed out everybody who was in, but the one person that we missed that we really didn't notice was Marvin. Leaning against the wall with his head down, looking very dejected, and he's the same color and shade as the wall, so he just blends right in, and he's almost unnoticeable.
Right. And there's Arthur with his cup of tea as it's sloshing about, and Zaphod and Ford are in frantic poses.
Yes. Well, one of Zaphod is giddy, and the other one is very frustrated.
But what's odd? This is the third or fourth image that we've seen of Zaphod, and in all of the other images, he's wearing two different colored headbands. Here, they're both red, but in the others, they're red and blue. So,
yes, you're right. Nice catch. So, see, different artist wasn't paying attention.
There you go. Somebody missed something.
Right. So like the other books, it's going to have just your regular page of copyright information. And then again, here's where you see that Dennis Rodier is an inker. And now we'll start out with this page.
Yes, the blue page.
The blue page, or a blueprint page. The blueprint of a Vogon.
I love that because the little comment in the bottom right-hand corner was it say, I read it the other day, it said, more Vogons than you can shake a stick at or would want to. Right, yes.
There are a lot of Vogons on this page. So this is drawn by Steve Leialoha. You can see that he wrote his name down here, and he drew this in 1991, according to the date that he put after his name.
Oh, neat. Maybe he's doing some sketches of what they might look like, huh?
Yeah, so he's got a sketch of Vogon Jeltz in the lower left, and he's reading some poetry. Then they've got kind of a younger kid Vogon above him. There's skulls on a necklace, it looks like, of Vogon Jeltz.
Yep.
And then there's the guard with Arthur and Ford, one under each arm. Can you tell what that is up in the right-hand corner? It looks like this was part of a bigger page that got cut off.
It does, but I'm wondering if it's Dentrassi.
Oh, Dentrassi. That's it. Dentrassi.
Because it kind of looks like the wolf shape, that the Dentrassi are depicted as.
And I can see DEN before it's cut off. So definitely Dentrassi.
Mm-hmm.
And then under the Dentrassi, it looks like there's a Vogon who's holding a piece of paper, so he could be reading poetry or something. But he has this little creature on his arm.
Right.
On his elbow.
Looks like a little frog or something.
Like a little frog. Maybe it's this ultra baby Vogon.
Well, there you go. Yeah, maybe that's what they start off like.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of what would they look like in profile when they're speaking and spitting at the same time.
Lovely, lovely.
And then we have more of the history of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And here again, it mentions what you had said last time, that it mentions the concept of the ends of the earth.
Yes. Yes, and then he decided that he needed someone around who could tell the story, so he had to have him rescued off the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he decided to call him Ford Prefect. That was a joke that was missed by the American audiences, since they had never heard of the rather oddly named little car.
Mm-hmm.
And many thought it was a typing error for perfect, which I was one of them. Well, I didn't think it was a typing error. I just read it perfect. I didn't even notice it was misspelled.
Right. That's funny.
So here again it says the same thing about he had no idea writing episodically meant that when I finished one episode. So this is almost like the same thing, just in a different order.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now we are going to jump to the continuing story. And here it starts out with the space is big, really big.
Mm-hmm.
And how you can survive for 30 seconds. And how lives are dictated by phone numbers.
Right.
All of the key points from the book.
Right. And it shows Arthur and Ford holding their breath.
Right. And a telephone seems to be flying with them. And so now all of a sudden they're rescued, but they have no idea how or why, and Ford still took credit for it.
Mm-hmm. And they're getting oddly bent out of shape.
Yes, and they're being smeared into rainbows, and then there's the seafront at South End. It's hard to tell what they're clinging on. I guess it's kind of a pier or a boardwalk of some kind.
Right. I think
from South End.
Yeah, like a bridge or pier, like you say.
Yeah. All right. So now they're trying to talk each other out of deciding that they've gone crazy.
And they see a three-headed man carrying what looks like a piece of shrubbery
across
the waves.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that is.
I don't either. It looks like Arthur asks, who was that? And Ford said, I don't know, just someone. So a little variation of the book, or a little variation from the book. There also seems to be a lot of horses running across the tops of the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have the joke about the buildings washing up and the sea staying steady as a rock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what do you think those are on the bottom right corner? The Weebles.
Yeah, the Weebles. That's what I was just thinking. They look like Weebles.
They got paper in front of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not
That's
sure.
really
Let's
weird.
see what they throw at us the next page.
Donuts.
They threw donuts.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and then the vat of custard.
Mm-hmm. At least that one looks like custard.
Yes.
A little bit more than the illustrated version.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. And then here's something that I don't quite get, because Arthur is asking Ford, like, what's that voice? And he says, I don't know, it sounds like a measure of probability. And there's nothing on the page that makes it seem like there's another voice that they're hearing.
No.
Like, it's not just like flowing through the air, and it's just they hear something that we don't.
Yep, that's really weird. Oh my goodness, that's bizarre image.
Yes, and now they're like between two giant statues or something.
Body's getting elongated, and then
yep. Oh, yeah.
Arthur loses his legs there.
Yeah.
Half of his body's off in one direction, he's in the other.
And his arms.
Oh, there goes his arms. Yep. And then
Ford's a penguin.
Into a penguin.
Oh, and then here they put the levels of probability.
Right. The word. Yep. Now they're floating through the air.
Now they're floating through the air. Oh, Arthur's getting really long fingers. And they are told, welcome to the starship Heart of Gold. And how they were rescued from certain death of this amazing probability.
And then, of course, our joke about the monkeys in Hamlet.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of green monkeys.
They're quite frightening, actually.
They are frightening, yes. Writers.
Oh, gosh.
Now we're going to jump to the guide talking about the infinite improbability drive.
Right. And there's your shoe like you've never seen it.
Yes.
The Heart of Gold like a shoe.
Correct. And generating small amounts of probability by hooking the logic circuits of a Brambleweenie 57 sub-meson brain to an atomic vector plotter suspended in a strong Brownian motion producer. Say a nice hot cup of tea. Of course, was well understood.
Right.
And again, I always like the joke about how the scientists were always upset at them using this at parties because they never got
invited to that kind of party.
Where all of the undergarments of the hostess leapt 1 foot to the left. And then here... they needed it for the story. For some reason, when after perpetual failure in creating this machine, the scientists announced that such a machine was virtually impossible. They didn't just say impossible. They threw out the virtually. Like they still had... like they didn't totally give up. Which... kind of surprised me, because if they're going to throw in the towel, you would have to say that they're going to admit that it can't be done. And then the guy wouldn't have tried, because on the next page, we're going to learn about the grad student who was cleaning up.
After a badly thrown party.
Yes. Who somehow was able to exactly work out how improbable it was that it would ever be produced. The infinite probability generator, and voila, right out of thin air, there it is. But he paid for it.
Yes, he did.
In a very graphic manner.
Yes, apparently. He shouldn't have worn that necklace to work that day.
That's right. Or maybe he was celebrating on the lamppost and he fell off and it just got snagged.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Oh, look at this. Wow.
So now we're our first double-page spread.
Yeah, and guess what? Zaphod's shown with 2 red bandanas.
Yes, he's got headbands of the same color again.
On 4 panels, and he's got the same one. And this is where he's arguing with Trillian about having picked up hitchhikers.
Yes.
But it is interesting because looking here at the bridge, of course, it looks very technical and bridge-like in most cases. But in the background, you can see boxes full of cardboard and
yes,
Marvin leaning up against the wall, as you said.
Yeah, he's like, "Where's Waldo?" It's like, find Marvin and all of these. It's pretty well hidden.
Yep.
And of course, Zaphod uses the line 10 out of 10 for style, but minus several million for good thinking. And Trillian's like, I didn't do it. What do you mean you didn't do it?
The ship did.
And of course, there's the obvious line where he yells, "That's incredible."
No, Zaphod, just very improbable.
Yeah. And they're just a couple of guys she expects, so she calls Marvin, who's just sitting. And Marvin, of course, is very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
She says, well, here's something to occupy you and keep your mind off things.
It looks like she's actually helping him up off the floor.
Yes. And so then, of course, he says, it won't work. I have an exceptionally large mind.
Yeah, the depiction of Marvin here is quite unusual. It's kind of like an amorphic blob of a body,
Yes.
With triangular eyes.
Right. Well, he's supposed to have triangular eyes. That's true. In the description. Mm-hmm. But he does not look like any other depiction of Marvin. He's certainly not the blocky square robot from the TV show.
Nope. Or the round thing from the movie.
Yes. I'm trying to think if this is how it was in the book. If it was this way, it certainly wasn't to this level. Mm-hmm. So Marvin really not interested in going, and she says, it's just life. And he's like, oh, don't talk to me about life. And then as he's walking away, the last panel at the bottom of the page, she is done with him. I mean,
right.
Her expression and her posture and screaming that she can't stand that robot much longer seems a bit more passionate than it was in anything we've seen.
That's right.
So now we're going to go to some cards. We've got some character cards for the introduction of Trillian.
Oh, wow. That's nice. I like what they've done there with her hands up in the little area. It looks like she's controlling the computer with one hand, in a virtual space.
Yes. So the whole wave your hand through the air. Remember, you can throw a pen and turn off the radio.
Right. Yep. And there's Marvin sort of in the background a little bit.
Yep.
That's a good image.
Yes, it's a very nice image. So here's a line that has been in every iteration, and it is one that I've really never understood. So she's got degrees in math, and she's an astrophysicist and all of this. Mm-hmm. And she ran away with Zaphod because it was either that or the dole queue again come Monday. What is a dole queue?
Oh, well, unemployment.
So she's unemployed.
Yes. Or she would be unemployed if she hadn't gone with him, being an astrophysicist, etc. So
it's not a lucrative career back in the early 80s or late 70s?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess what she's implying here is that if she hadn't gone off with an alien being an astrophysicist, they would have fired her and she would have been unemployed.
Okay. All right. They kind of hint at that in later radio series.
Yes, they do.
And books, I guess. The Mostly Harmless book has her dilemma. Mm-hmm. And of course, there is a character card for Marvin.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. The characterization of Arthur, Ford, and Trillian in here is just hysterical.
You don't even realize it's them at first.
No. But you know what I was thinking about? I was trying to think of where I'd seen that kind of stylized artistry before. And it comes to mind that it's kind of like the Mad Magazine sort of approach.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah. So yeah, this is an image that I'm so glad I'm able to put up and show, because Trillian looks like, what's that? Is that the comic strip Kathy?
Yeah. Or like Gilda Radner on Too Much Coffee.
Yes. And Arthur looks pudgy.
Oh, yeah. He
pudgy
looks
and
more like what I'd expect him to look like, yeah.
Yeah, his socks are all falling down.
He's in slippers. Oh, I love it. All
right, so we're going to go back to the comic book, and here It's where the Encyclopedia Galactica is defining a robot as the mechanical apparatus designed to do the work of a man.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shows Marvin with, like, babysitting on the beach or something. So I'm guessing that babysitter was the number one use of a robot.
No. I think, well, that refers to the line here that they're, it says, the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation defines a robot as your plastic pal who's fun to be with. So here they're trying to show a robot in a situation where it would be fun to be with.
Oh, because they're burying him. Yeah.
Yeah, they're burying him in the sand and they all look pretty frightened.
Yes, they do.
Oh my gosh. The Hitchhiker's Guide goes on to describe the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation as a bunch of mindless jerks who'd be the first against the wall when the revolution comes.
Right, but then, of course, an edition of Encyclopedia Galactica fell through a time warp from 1,000 years in the future, and it was a slightly altered entry.
Yes, it says they were a bunch of mindless jerks who were the first against the wall.
Right, yes.
Taka.
And then we have a character card for Marvin. There we go.
Oh, yeah, they show the beach scene again.
It's slightly different.
Yes, there at least the children are having fun, right?
Yeah.
Or the child is, anyway.
Yeah, Marvin is actually holding the umbrella, and one of the kids is having a good time.
You suppose those are Forlornest fire dragons in the background there?
They might be.
Are they on St. Trajanus 5 or whatever it is?
Maybe they are.
Oh my goodness. Too many planets to remember.
So if you look at the description, so we know what Forlornest fire dragons mean.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Marvin with 3 what appear to be at least one child, and in the background, do you think those are children, or do you think those are the parents?
I think they're like the
child?
parents, yeah. They look like parents, maybe.
Okay. We'll hope they're parents.
Yes.
But then it says, look at the card and draw your own conclusion about your plastic pal and fun to be with. So, not quite sure what they're implying here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go to Robots Part 2. And here's where they're talking about the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation marketing division.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very similar image to the first one, slightly different, a little clearer.
Right.
But this must be the marketing division.
Right. They look like marketers.
Yes. Meanwhile, so Ford and Arthur are finally out of the improbability levels and everything's normal again. And Ford is looking through a brochure, and Arthur's pushing a button he shouldn't.
Just because it says, please do not press this button.
Yes. And when he does,
it says, please do not press this button again. Beep.
Correct. Now we get to learn about GPP, the genuine people personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur says it sounds ghastly.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden somebody else says it is ghastly. All absolutely ghastly. And Marvin comes in and starts explaining how much he hates the cheerful and sunny disposition of all the doors.
Right.
So Marvin says that he's been ordered to take them down to the bridge. Call that job satisfaction, because I don't. And so Ford wants to know what government owns the ship. And he learns it's been stolen.
Right.
And Marvin tells him that it was stolen by Zaphod Beeblebrox. And here, Ford is shocked.
Right. He shouts it out.
Arthur can tell that Ford's a little taken aback that Zaphod is the one who has this ship. So he's asking, are you all right?
Mm-hmm. And Marvin's repeating his discontent with life.
Yes. And here they have the news program.
He's literally watching a talking head.
Yes, literally watching a talking head. And he's talking about the theft of the new improbability drive, and that it was by none other than the man once described by Eccentrica Columbus as the best bang since the big one, Zaphod Beeblebrox, who was recently voted the worst dressed sentient being in the known universe for the 7th time. And then Trillian turned it off before Gag Hellfront came in.
That's right.
We missed, like, everybody's favorite line of the entire series is edited out of the book. So again, this goes to show, I think, when Douglas Adams was saying that they didn't quite understand it, like the stuff that they cut out and the stuff that they left in.
Right.
Cutting out Zaphod's just this guy, is, I don't know how they could do that.
It seems too vitally important to us, that's for sure.
Yes.
And then, of course, Trillian is discussing where they're picked up, and ZZ9 plural Z alpha, and she's asking Zaphod if he understands what that means, and Zaphod says, what does the Z mean?
Yeah, which one? Anyone. Yeah. Here she makes it easy for him, and she just says, it's the same sector where you originally picked me up.
And he says, hey, isn't that wild?
Yeah. And then he's talking about how they should have been right at the Horsehead Nebula, so how were they there? And she explains that the improbability drive, you pass through every point in the universe simultaneously. And you know that.
Right.
So then Zaphod wants to find out how improbable it actually is, so he calls for the computer. And we finally get to hear the computer. Why, hello there. All I want to do is to make your day nicer and nicer and nicer. So he says, shut up and work something out for me.
Yeah, we didn't get to hear his name, the computer's name.
No.
And he didn't even say his name when he came on.
No, he didn't. So here is where Zaphod and Trillian are told by the computer that most people's lives are governed by telephone numbers.
Oh my gosh.
And there's ticker tape again coming out of this.
Yeah, that's what I was laughing about. The ticker tape is just spewing out of the council, and they're trying to read it as they're getting the information.
And now Trillian wants to take a look at the aliens that have been picked up by the ship. So she wants to turn on the monitors.
And so...
I guess we get to see, this is the monitor view.
Right. Meanwhile, back on the other part of the ship.
Yeah. Oh, and then Marvin is complaining about the pain in all the diodes down his left side.
And Arthur's trying to be sympathetic.
Yes, and Ford is still going, well, Zaphod Beeblebrox. So he's still hung up on Zaphod being the one that stole the ship. So they've made it to the bridge. Marvin's still complaining about the doors. And just when you think life can't possibly get any worse, it suddenly does.
Oh my gosh. Marvin.
Yes, and Zaphod is just sort of laid out on the table with his hands covering his eyes. Looking very nonchalant.
Yep, trying to be super casual.
Yes. And so they're trying to outcool each other, where Ford is just, hey, glad you could drop in. Hey, Zaphod, great to see ya. And then introduces Zaphod to his friend whose planet blew up, Arthur. And Arthur says they've already met.
Except you were bloody Martin Smith from Croydon.
Yes.
Oh,
or should
man.
I say Phil?
Phil?
Yeah. He's like, you'll have to remind me. I got a terrible memory for species. So here's where Arthur is saying it was at a party 6 months ago. Earth, England, London, Islington. He's like, oh, that party.
That party. Oh my gosh.
And now Ford is red-faced angry because he was stranded on the planet for 15 years and Zaphod was there and didn't rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arthur says that he gate crashed a party, a fancy dress party. And that there was a girl at the party. And then Ford is telling him to stop sulking about the planet that blew up.
Yeah. He says, I wish you'd stop sulking about the bloody planet and tell us who the lady was. And then Arthur says, oh, well, all right.
Now, here on this page is what I'm going to say is the biggest, most glaring error in the entire comic book series.
Okay.
Doesn't jump right off the page at you?
Oh, he's only got one head. He doesn't have a bird cage.
It's not a costume party.
Oh, yeah. They said fancy dress, and
which is a costume party in England.
Yep,
but here it gets interpreted as black tie. So in America,
that's probably the American confusion. Yep, they were talking about. Mm-hmm.
So that throws everything off. How is he going to blend in at a formal party? You need a costume party for Zaphod to slip in inconspicuous.
Yep. And here it's interestingly penned here. I like the way it's like Arthur's on the left of the page, and he comes about 3/4 of the way down the page, and then the rest of it's on the right side, and it's his memory of the party and such.
Yeah, kind of like a flashback.
Right. But here again, he looks more like I said, Clark Kent than he does, more like Superman. And
right.
And Trillian here definitely looks much more glamorous in his memory than she does in the spaceship.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And now we learn that same girl is on the ship.
Mm-hmm. Tricia McMillan.
Hitched a ride with Zaphod. Because he's like, hey, babe, I'm from another planet.
And that's about when Zaphod decides to get drunk, right?
Correct.
Because you see him drinking something.
Yes. And now here, they talk about during the ship's artificial night. So they do have a change of day that they didn't have.
Yes, that's one thing I thought was really interesting, that they put this little disclaimer in. We see that transition from what would be Thursday night or whatever to Friday morning.
Right.
Trillian's awoken by her mice and
running in their wheel or whatever. And so she gets on the computer. It looks like Zaphod is passed out.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sneaks into his room and whispers, I think we just found what we came looking for. And so since we saw the mice, I'm going to show the character card for the mice.
Oh, Benji and Frankie.
Benji and Frankie. Actual part of the race that are commissioned to build the ultimate computer known as Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping tabs on their eons-long program, they lived on the Earth with Tricia McMillan, a.k.a. Trillian, before the Vogons destroyed it.
Right. They show a little placard in the back with 42 on it.
Yes.
It doesn't look like 42. It looks, stylized, but it's pretty cool.
Right. And then we get to the Hitchhiker's Guide talking about far back in the mists of ancient times.
My favorite Star Trek reference.
Oh, yeah. And they got a lot of these small, furry creatures.
Yes, they definitely look like tribbles, don't they?
They certainly do. And they say, wubba lubba lubba.
Oh, my gosh, it's so funny.
So we get to see what a real man looks like and a real woman looks like.
I haven't met too many of those. Oh, my gosh.
And then it talks about how everyone became very rich, and then there's this kind of a Jabba the Hutt-like character being fanned and fed. And then I guess it crashed because now there's some guy face down in his drink. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're talking about how the conditions for a staggering new form of specialized industry, because everybody was so rich, for custom-built planets. Mm-hmm. And then Magrathea became so successful, it was the richest planet of all time, and the rest of the galaxy was reduced to poverty, so they just closed. Mm-hmm. And the system broke down, and the empire collapsed, and Magrathea itself disappeared, and its memory soon passed into the obscurity of legend.
And that's where we find ourselves now.
Yes. And here, I'm going to do a character card for the Alpha Centurions.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah,
they look
this
like
is great.
Superheroes, and I don't know. I mean, they're little tribble snowballs.
Cotton balls, yeah.
Cotton balls.
Yes. Cotton balls with eyes and mouths.
Right. Is that the artist's signature down at the bottom with 94 on
yes.
it? Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So a card created after the book specifically for the cards.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because in the comic book, the man has reddish brown hair and the woman's a blonde. And on the card, the man's a blonde and the woman has reddish brown hair.
Right. And again, it's one of those things that it bugs me, but it's correct because it was the guide or a narration where they do everything in pastels and they mess with all the colors. So none of the colors are right. Like the tribbles were even a different color in the book.
Right.
They were, in the book, they were like greenish, but they're really white. Mm-hmm. And so here's a character card for the Magratheans. So I'm guessing one of these must be Slarty Bartfast. The Etcher of Fjords. I do not know who the other two are, but they must be some other designers.
Fascinating.
So now Ford is yelling at Zaphod, saying there's no way that's Magrathea. It's just a myth. And it's a story that parents tell their kids at night when they don't want them to grow up and become economists.
What could be worse than that? Oh my
So the
gosh.
computer then, who's just called the computer, and then, he says, hi there, this is Eddie. So the computer announces himself as Eddie here and confirms that they are orbiting the planet Magrathea. The legendary planet of Magrathea.
Hi there. What can I do for you?
Just shut up and give us a view of the planet.
Oh my gosh.
The next thing I'm going to show is a card that says Magrathea is a myth. So here Trillian is looking out at the planet Magrathea while Ford has his back to it, touting that it's a myth and doesn't really exist.
Right.
Zaphod has one head looking at him, and the other head's looking at the planet going, ooh.
Oh my gosh.
So now they're 300 miles above the surface of Magrathea, and then dawn breaks, twin suns.
Behold the fires of dawn.
Right. This is where Zaphod doesn't want his... He's in the middle of something, and he is not going to have it squelched. So he's like, the twin sons of Solianus and Ram. And Ford's like, or whatever. Like, Solianus and Ram.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Arthur's trying to find out from Trillian what's going on, and she compares Magrathea to Atlantis. And then, for some reason, Arthur just wants to know if there's any tea on the spaceship. Just out of the blue.
Yep. He just decided he was done.
They're still arguing about whether or not it is Magrathea, and the narrator decides to put us all out of our misery.
Right.
The suspense is killing me.
Oh my gosh. They say stress and nervous tension are now serious social problems in all parts of the galaxy.
Yes.
And it is in order that this situation should not in any way be exacerbated that the following facts will now be revealed in advance.
Yes. And then they go into the pastel page again, and telling us it is Magrathea, and that there's going to be a missile attack, and that it will result in the breakage of 3 coffee cups, a mouse cage, and somebody's upper arm will be bruised.
And of course, the untimely creation of a whale and a bowl of petunias.
Yes, and their sudden demise. But they do want to keep some sense of mystery. So they're not going to tell us something. They're not going to tell us whose upper arm sustained the bruise.
That's safe.
Yes, because it has no significance whatsoever. Arthur again is asking if it's safe. Zaphod said that it's been dead for a million years. Even the ghosts have settled down and had families by now. And then again, a giant talking head appears.
I love it.
Announcing that Magrathea thanks you for your visit, but the planet is closed. And if you care to leave your name and number and address of where you can be contacted, please speak when you hear the tone. So, answering machines are the same.
Universally.
Millions of years. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. And they keep moving towards the planet, and of course, 3 more times they get accosted by the large head.
Yes. And again, one thing that I like is they kept 3 times. They cut it down to 2 in the movie, which, no, it's 3 times.
That's right.
Everything's 3 times.
Oh. And the fully armed nuclear warheads are, of course, merely a courtesy detail. We look forward to your patronage in future lives. Thank you.
And Trillian's like, oh. And then here is a card of the Magrathean Times, their catalog.
Oh, nice.
But they're closed for business. So I thought that was a kind of a nice way of doing that.
The best of contemporary geography.
Correct. All right, so Zaphod's happy that they're trying to kill us because that must mean they're onto something. And he wants the computer to take evasive action, but it can't take evasive action because all of its computer guidance systems are jammed.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Zaphod asks for full manual control. And look, they kept the packing peanuts joke.
They did indeed. Oh, I love it. The board springs out covered with peanuts and wrapping paper.
And everybody's wondering who can fly it, and nobody says they can, and Arthur says he can't. And they don't put Zaphod chastising him like, yeah, we knew that.
Yeah, monkey man.
And then Eddie is saying, hey, good luck, guys. Impact minus 30 seconds. And they're just full retro thrust and 10 degrees starboard or something. And you see the shoe, and the missiles are approaching. And now, because of all these evasive maneuvers, they're just being thrown all around the ship, and they're banging on things. And obviously, this is when somebody's arm got bruised. Ship is upside down in the bottom. Looks like Zaphod broke a control handle. Missiles are still chasing.
Right, the ship is flipping over and around.
Just missed, yeah. And then it's impact minus 20 seconds. So a lot of more evasive maneuvers.
Oh. Right. It is funny, though, that they hadn't shown the singing yet, but in the next panels, they start talking about it. Oh, no, here it is, where they...
Oh, yeah.
The singing
the
of the
next
song,
page here.
You'll Never Walk Alone.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. I thought it was funny because they actually credit the song in the very beginning in the publisher page from
all right.
1945.
Okay. And Arthur, again, is saying, now we're going to die. And Ford is saying, I wish you would stop saying that. Eddie has revised the impact time to 15 seconds because got missed once.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ford basically tells Arthur, yes, we're going to die.
Then Arthur suggests the improbability drive, and Zaphod says that's insane without programming.
Yes.
And then you hear Marvin still singing in the background.
Right.
And then
Arthur pushes the button.
Zappelish.
Yeah. And there's an explosion of light and color.
Mm-hmm. And we see our friends.
Yes.
The Petunia and the whale. And here they describe what's going through the whale's mind as he's falling towards what he finally decides to call the world.
Yes. But there's all kinds of this funny feeling in his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
There's this rushing, whistling, roaring sound going past. What he's going to call his head.
Perhaps I can call that wind.
Right. And again, here's another double page spread.
I know. Isn't this lovely?
Yeah, this is a great
It really
page.
does do a good job for our poor friend, the whale.
Yes.
Now here it shows him quite a bit higher up above the elevation of the planet than I would have imagined,
Yes. Well, they started at 300 miles, but with all of their evasive maneuvers, who knows how far out they ended up.
Right. Still within the gravity well.
Yes. And the whale is dizzy with anticipation of what's coming next. Or is it the wind?
And we still get our favorite little line. I wonder if it'll be friends with me.
Yes. And then it's just a red kersplat.
And the final panel, oh no, not again.
Yes. And if we knew exactly why the Petunias thought this, we would know a lot more about the nature of the universe than we do now.
To be continued.
Yes, so this is where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
So here is another full-page sketch, which is kind of Zaphod and Trillian and Marvin on the Heart of Gold. This has to be before they picked up Ford and Arthur.
Right, it looks like Zaphod pushing the improbability drive button.
Right, to head to Magrathea. One head is asleep.
Mm-hmm. He's still got his president sash on at that point, so it must be directly after he stole the ship.
Right.
They don't show that in the comic book pages after that.
And then they used that image as prototype number 3 card.
Oh, neat. Wow, yep, it's very much similar.
Yeah, it talks a little bit about the artwork. So this was done by Steve Leialoha.
Mm-hmm.
And he offered colorist Laverne Kanzierski 2 different color guides. And it sounds like he used parts of both.
That's interesting.
And now here's another style with our group. And I'm guessing this would be on Magrathea. This is a preview where they are in the catalog of planets.
Oh,
Arthur is not there. And
no,
it's
Arthur's
all
not
these
there.
Dinosaurs with
Yes.
giant diamonds on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wondered what that might represent, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. That could be the catalog page, or the catalog that they're in,
Yes.
and images flying by.
And so then it says, be with us next time for Volume 3 in which all is revealed. And they've got Arthur. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, by that other artist. He just only has a different 3D look. And there's one of the mice with Marvin behind Arthur.
And Arthur's looking freaked out at something.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have more of the
biography page. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then, of course, the DC comic page. And then the back cover, which is kind of a ad for the Heart of Gold, powered by the Infinite Improbability Drive.
Right.
Be the envy of most governments.
Right. So it's a page from the brochure that Ford must have been reading earlier. I love it.
All right, Brian. Well, that took care of issue 2 of volume 1. Mm-hmm. And as we promised, next week will be our second bonus episode where we do the conclusion of volume 1 with issue number 3.
A trilogy of a trilogy. That's exactly...
A trilogy of a trilogy, yes.
Well, I guess it's time to say goodbye, Jeff. Why don't you say goodbye?
Yes, I'm going to go get a drink because these cliffhangers are killing me.
Don't stress yourself out, man.
That's right. Stress and nervous tension. Those are serious, serious problems. Thank you for listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. Look for us the first Thursday of every month for a full episode. We will also release a bonus episode later in the month. A very special thanks goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. We would also like to thank our talented friends and family for their voice work on our introductions and commercials. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com, where you can find links to all my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea, on Instagram as Watches Idea Podcast, and on Twitter at Watches Idea. If you'd like to contact us, our email is digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.